This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Jody Duncan, and I am the professional development specialist that's been working with Hamtramck on kind of onboarding you all to iReady. We are excited to have you a part of our iReady family, and I'm excited to work with all of you who work with our students with special needs. So just a quick background of who I am. I've been in education for over 20 years. I worked for as a first grade teacher, a fifth grade teacher, seventh and eighth grade teacher. I served as a K-8 school principal for 8 years in Mount Clemens, Michigan and Kalamazoo, Michigan. I have worked for NWA, and now I work for Curriculum Associates in more of a consulting basis. So excited to be here with you all and talk more about accessibility and accommodations. So we'll go ahead and get started. My thought is I kind of go through the presentation, then I'm going to show you where some additional resources are for you to follow back up with and reference as you're working with iReady and your students with special needs, and then open it up to some question and answer time as well. Okay. So the first thing was we kind of, some of you who were in earlier, we talked, you shared in the chat box what your thoughts were when you heard or hear universal accessibility and what comes to mind. So if you take a peek in your chat box, the little circle next to the people will show the chat box. We've got some thoughts here, accommodations that are available for everyone of all abilities, something that is available for use by people regardless of any barriers. Interactive system that takes into consideration sensory impairment of students, motor, visual, auditory. And so there are some thoughts. If you want to continue to add some thoughts, feel free to do that in the chat box. That kind of sets us up so that I can lead us into how does iReady address accessibility and accommodation. So the first one is accessibility, and the way we look at that is it's a universal accessibility feature that's available to all students based on student preference. So because the features are available to all students, regardless of their ability, students can choose whether to use that feature or not. And I will go through what some of those features are, okay? Accommodation is where we have a change to procedure or process to increase that equitable access for students with disabilities. They're only for students who have a documented need as an IEP or a 504 plan. Okay, so we'll kind of look at those, how iReady addresses those, and give you one of the questions is how would you write this into an IEP and 504? So we'll talk kind of through that too. Okay. So here is an overview of right now our accessibility features in iReady. So we've broken it out into the 3 assessments that we actually have. Right now, you guys are focused on the iReady Diagnostic, so that first column here. So our accessibility features are we have a keyboard navigation, and I'll go into what that looks like in a minute. We also have audio support. We have color contrast, and then we have closed captioning of our introductory videos. So in those, most of our diagnostics will start out with an introductory video for the students. And so in grades 3+, we will have a closed captioning available for those introductory videos, okay? Not yet available for our K2. We do have ongoing improvements to our closed captioning, and we'll continue to work on and improving in that area for all grades. Okay, so let's talk about the keyboard navigation. When I say that, what I am talking about, it is providing the ability to navigate questions and answers by using the keyboard instead of a mouse. Okay, it is across all items in the iReady Diagnostic and our growth monitoring assessment. The way that they're going to do it is they're going to use the keyboard selections, the tab, shift plus tab, enter or space. And then you'll see on the screen here, it does give you like a highlight in yellow when you are using the keyboard navigation on the screen for the students. So this is also an example of what a question might look like for our students. Okay, so the tab key will initiate keyboard navigation features. The next thing we have is audio support. And with the audio support, it provides the ability to click on an audio button, which you can see here on the screen throughout the questions and the answers, that have corresponding text for a question or answer read aloud. It is for select items in the diagnostic based on the domain or the level of the items. All the students have to do is click on the speaker icon wherever it appears. Okay, so you can see here on this question, it is appearing even in the answers as well. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to give you the document that backs up these so that you, if you forget what I'm saying here, you'll have a reference point. So here's where the audio support is currently available. Math, grades K through 5. In the phonics domain for reading, grades K through 3. In the high frequency words, grades K through 3. Vocabulary, grades K2. Our phonological awareness is going to be grades K1, and reading comprehension is grade K. After grade K, we're really looking for comprehension, so we don't provide the audio for the students because we want to check their comprehension based on their reading ability. Okay. And if you want to take a screenshot of this or a picture, feel free if it helps you. Here's the closed captioning that I was talking about earlier that is not available in the introductory videos for K2 as of yet. I say yet because this is an area that we are continuing to grow in. So the closed captioning provides the ability to display the text on the computer screen that lines to the audio. Again, in our introductory videos, which the students, anytime they open up a diagnostic, it always gives them that introductory video. But the closed caption is only available at this time for grades 3 and above. Okay. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to use the CC box in the bottom left corner of the screen. Hang on. Where? There it is. Okay. We also have color contrast. This is basically referring to how bright or dark the colors appear on the screen to address the loss of contrast experienced by users with low visual acuity or color deficiencies. This is in all of our diagnostic, standards mastery, and growth monitoring assessment items. And how is just by taking the assessment. We built it right into our assessment. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. So any questions so far before I move into accommodations? That's just our accessibility that we have available right now. Okay. So I'm going to move into accommodations. So an accommodation is a change to procedure or process to increase equitable access for students with disabilities. They are only for students who have a documented need, as in an IEP or 504 plan. So what we recommend in regards to accommodations is that you first identify any of your students with those IEPs or 504 plans that stipulate testing accommodations. You alert your administrator if you do not know exactly how these accommodations should be provided when administering the diagnostic, and then follow up to be sure you have a plan in place before administering the diagnostic. So back to the original question, we really leave it up to the district to determine how they want to view the district assessment within the 504s and the IEPs. A lot of school districts, whatever they put on a state, they use with the iReady assessment, the diagnostic as well. Okay, so if they're going to give, you know, longer time, well, that can be in the IEP in 504, but understand that it's not a time test we already allow as long as a student needs to take for it. If they need breaks, certainly you can write that in, but understand we actually recommend breaks. So we say 2 testing periods per subject, 20 minutes each testing period for testing fatigue. So a lot of, I think, the accommodations that are typically written in IEPs and 504 for state assessments are already part of our process that we recommend with that. And then, you know, like we said, we build in the speakers, and certain items can be read, or they can play the speaker for it to be read to them. So there are, that's something I think as a district you come to terms with. Is there anything additional that maybe iReady is not providing that we believe our teachers need written into their 504s or IEPs? Go ahead.
Jody, I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought. When we're talking about accommodation, I understand there are universal accommodations that are available to all students, and there are some things that are just not built in because of the way the system is designed, and I get that. But I'm a little bit more concerned about students with IEPs who have either a visual impairment or a hearing impairment, and their ability to interface with the system when it's providing instruction that they can't hear or they can't see.
Yes, yes.
So some of the gradient shading that you saw, that you showed us in the earlier screen about green overlays and all that, some of our students with visual impairments may not be able to see that. So how do you accommodate for those features of the test for students who are, for example, hearing impaired or visually impaired?
Yes. And so that's where I'm actually going to take you to a more detailed document. So this
Okay.
was a kind of a high level, but we have like a 15-page document that outlines a lot more information. So I'm going to show you, and I will attach these in my email to Nate with the recording. So we have this website called iReadyCentral.com. And I'm actually, if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to put it right in here into the chat box, and you can click on it and it will open right up just so you can see where I went. First of all, if you've never gone here, oops, I think I spelled central wrong on that, so that's not going to work. This is a wealth of knowledge for you. So if you're trying just to learn more about iReady, I highly recommend that you bookmark iReadyCentral.com and come here. And where I'm at from here, once I get into iReadyCentral.com, I'm going to go to the frequently asked questions. Okay, so there's a tab over here on the left-hand side. Right here, and no, I do not want to provide you feedback right now.
While you're doing that, Menem, I have a quick question. How did you guys accommodate using NWEA for those 2 impairments, for vision or for like hearing impaired?
Hearing, yes.
With NWEA, how did you do it with that program?
If you're talking, you're on mute, madam.
I need to post a sticky note to remind myself to unmute. Thank you, Nate. So depending on the degree of visual acuity and how to what degree it's impacted, some students had either special lenses that they wore as part of their visual eye prescription. Others had adapted devices that magnified the screen for them. So I just want to make sure that for the devices that the students receive, if we would receive technical support from iReady to launch this platform on the students' devices to allow them to participate in the assessment. I am not sure how they created an interface between the directions, the oral directions component of the test for students that have hearing aids or cochlear implants or were not aided or do not have cochlear implant. I'll leave that up to the staff. They can speak to past practice better than I can. But Jody, to answer your question about Michigan, the Department of Education, I'll be happy to share with you a link to it. A couple of years ago, I want to say maybe a decade ago, published a very helpful tool that lists all different types of assessments that Michigan participates in, and provided the perimeter of what is considered to be standard versus non-standard assessments. And they took into consideration the different forms and types of disabilities and the types of impact. And it's a tool, it's a comprehensive tool that helps the staff strategize and develop recommendations for IEPs for what accommodation students are to receive on state assessments. Some of those strategies do apply for district assessments. So we just want to make sure that that tool is then able to be revised and updated in line with how it can be adapted to this new assessment.
Yes, understand. And if I would love if you want to share that link with me, that would be great. Okay, so once we're at iReady Central, we're going to go to frequently asked questions. And anytime you're looking for anything, this is a great resource to go to. And I'm going to go to getting started here. There's a little plus that says instruction, and then it says getting started. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to scroll down, and towards the bottom, the very last one says, in this category, says what accessibility features are available. I'm going to click on that. And basically it just talks about everything that we said in this little paragraph, right? But then there's this little click here to learn more about the accessibility features. So I click on that, and it's only a 2-page high-level overview, okay? But then from here, basically it shares everything that I just shared with you. But then there is also a diagnostic guidance document to learn about relevant exceptions. So I'm going to click on here. And this is a lot more detailed. It's 15 pages. And in here is where you'll talk about universal audio support. It will give more information on that. It will talk about how we're trying to align ourselves with the WCAG. It will also talk more about that color contrast. It gives guidance on text-to-speech browser extensions, braille displays, screen readers. So I gave a very high level, but if you dig in here, I think you're going to get a lot more into some of those more special cases that we have needs for as well. Okay, so you mentioned something, Menhem, about, so we do have, you know, general guidance around a larger monitor or using dual monitors, also magnifying, so there is a built-in magnifying option in the operating system for larger monitors that can prove it useful to some students to reduce scrolling. We also are compatible with some third-party screen magnification software. And then we have screen readers as well, the VoiceOver or JAWS. So I think that this, and this is what I was going to, I mean, I showed you where to get it, but I will also attach this document to Nate to send out with the recording. to help give a little bit more information on more of those specific things. And then it even will give you like recommended screen reader skills by grade. Kind of our stance on can a screen reader be used for meeting the accommodation requirement of ensuring students have an oral presentation of the material on their test. So the Braille displays, text-to-speech browser extensions. So in regards to the visual impairments, you know, we recommend that teachers or aides read the passages aloud or the question stems for those visual impairments. But the student would listen to the audio when available, and then the helper could read aloud any questions and answer choices. But then again, you know, this is things that we recommend, but we support states across the country, so we want states to be cognizant of what is required at the state level too. Just like you mentioned, the state put out something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I don't want to dominate the time, and I'm sure the staff are wrapping their head around all this information. So I just want to invite them to, if they have any questions that is pertinent, this is a good time to ask, to take the time to ask.
Not to cut you off from questions, because I certainly want you to ask, but Nate, a question for you is, have you provided the special ed teachers an opportunity to practice taking the assessment themselves?
No, the and something I did want to point out to everybody. We will be providing plenty of sort of training just on how to use iReady and everything. So please don't focus too much on like I don't even know how to get into this system or use it. And the second thing we're attacking, I just met with iReady earlier today, is we don't have any support staff with access yet. We're trying to work that out where you can access the system and manage your students. I do have some demo accounts that I'll send out after the meeting with everything else, so you can log in and see what it looks like from the teacher view, which is what you'll have. Plus, you can see what it looks like from the student view. So you can see how the students are going to interact with things. And I'm working with Mark now in technology to get that resolved so we can get you guys access as soon as possible.
Great. And one of the first things we do, and you know, when we start a full implementation in a district, is we come in, hopefully, we come in face to face, and we provide PD on how to get students started and set up to even take the diagnostic. So part of the process is we have teachers take the diagnostic themselves, and then generate what are things that you want to set your students up for success. Some of that might be the scrolling. Some of it is we have built-in tools. So in math, we have built-in tools, a ruler, calculator, different resources they can use for the questions. And the tools only show up when the question allows for it. So setting the kids up in advance before they even go in and take the assessment. Part of that whole beginning PD is all about setting them up so that we get reliable, valid data.
So Jody, I know we looked at specific accommodations for students who are deaf and hard of hearing, as well as students with various degree of visual impairments. Can you speak to the features of the test and whether students have to provide oral responses? And if they do, then I would like to hear information about how would that accommodate students who are English language learners, and two, students that have various types of speech impediments.
Okay, so the answer to that is no, do not. The questions are, I would say, very similar. They're more interactive and maybe appealing to students than the NWA, but they're very similar type questions where it's multiple choice, a drop and drag kind of questions. So I think it's more, there's not, you know, they have to talk into anything like that. It's more of being able to either manipulate a mouse or drag on an iPad, depending on what the district determines devices that you're going to use, or use the keyboard navigation. So there's no writing and there is no oral speech on the assessment. I mean, Nate, you can jump in. You've seen it. I would say it's very similar to the NBA, except for it's more colorful. It's more maybe alive. I
Yeah,
think you used a word one day,
yeah,
Nate.
the NWA is very sterile,
That's the word you used.
and that's always been a hold up and breaks engagement. What we're looking at, one of the reasons we're looking at this iReady at the iReady platform is because not only is the actual assessment more engaging to the students, the support that you'll be providing them instead of trying to find so many different third-party resources will also be a large part of it will be from iReady as well with the lessons. And so students will be used to the interface when they take the test. And you'll see it if you haven't already, I'll send you the demo accounts like I said, but taking the test is almost like taking a lesson, and it's almost like it's gamified. So the students are going to be a lot more engaged and a lot more, a lot easier to sort of find some of the answers. We'll be engaged in trying to find what the question is and looking for the answers.
Yeah, and we do build in like almost like a brain break. So we switch in between domains, and when we switch in between domains, we put like a 90-second game in there to give them a brain break, because we have research that shows that if we break your train of thought of what you were working on, give you a little brain break, and then we switch the domain, your brain is ready to switch to that new concept. So that is built in there as well. So we'll open it up to questions now.
All right. So this is intended to be only a district assessment tool that provides information to teachers so that they can align instruction based on the assessment results for each student.
Yes, traditionally how we've used NWA, how everybody knows, is they take this assessment, it gives you a RIT score, you have the learning continuum that you can dig into and try to find where the weak points were, and then you have to go find other programs or other work to sort of align those areas. And so what we're doing is removing a lot of that work. They're going to take the assessment, and then iReady automatically pops up. Here's where everything that the student needs work on. These are the points they need strengthened. It assigns them lessons. It monitors their progress, so you can monitor their progress almost in real time. And if you feel as the instructor that iReady is giving some assignments that maybe are a little too challenging for your students or not challenging enough, it gives you the freedom to go in and sort of add some additional work into it so the students are getting the exact right level without you needing to go to, right now, you go to about 4 or 5 different resources just to assign one domain. This will all automatically happen in point and link, and the reports are all built in. And for you as users, the other issue is linking data. And, I'm a data guy, so you can never have too much data, but you guys can have too much data. And it just gets overwhelming because you don't know necessarily what it all means all the time. It's just throwing numbers at you. So you'll have access to as much data as you want to, but the way the iReady system is set up, It gives you everything from what students are working, time spent, who's, it breaks things up in a very easy, user-friendly way. So you're not bashing your brains into the screen because you're tired of looking at data, right? So it's a better experience for the students. It's a much better experience for you guys who are interested in actually just getting work done instead of becoming data scientists.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Nate. I guess my concern and the reason for why I was asking that specific question is that oftentimes some of these programs come packaged where you have the assessment tool, but you also have the intervention components and the instruction component interconnected. So you fall into that cycle of teach, pre-test, teach, post-test. And the programs tend to be compartmentalized, but also sequential. You go from workbook A to workbook B, and you work through the skill sets up until you get to the top of the ranking. I just want to make sure that this is only an assessment tool, and not embedded in an instructional component or an intervention component, because what ends up happening when you have a high level of student mobility and student movement, if they were there for the year where you covered the skills in book A, but left for the second year and missed book B, they come back and they're not up par to start with book C. I just want to make sure that it's not designed that way.
No, so our assessment, the students will start out with a, if they're in third grade, they're going to start out at a second grade question, and then it will adapt based on how they responded to that question. So they take the diagnostic 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring. After they take that first diagnostic, it identifies how they performed in each of the domains. So in math, we have 4 domains. We have numbers and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement, and geometry. And then reading, we have the 6 domains, right? And then they will have their own personalized online instruction path based on how they performed on that diagnostic, that they can work through the path. Now, if for some reason a teacher says, you know what, this might be, we've noticed that something isn't aligned right, they do have the ability to adjust that path, okay? And then they also have the ability to assign different lessons as well. But the idea is that we've created a personalized path to help them work through lessons. And this can be done like in small group or workshop time, center time. Kids can work when a teacher's pulling a small group, kids can work on these online lessons. Then we've also created what we call tools for instruction, and they're mini lesson plans for teachers. We never want to take teachers out of the equation, but if I notice this group of kids is struggling with fractions, here's a 15 to 30 minute step-by-step guide on fractions. The idea is not to replace a curriculum, but to provide more tools and resources for their toolbox, teachers' toolboxes. Then we cycle back around and are able to take it again in the winter. And then after we take it in the winter, their path is reset based on that diagnostic.
Okay, thank you for that. Teachers, any questions? Okay, hearing none, it's back to you, Jody.
All right, well, that's what I had planned to cover. Unless you have other questions, I think a next great step, Nate, is to really share with them the student logins so that they can see an example of an assessment. I think you better understand it when you partake in it. And act like a student. It is a demo, but I would still encourage you to act like a student and get questions wrong so that you can kind of see what that adaptability looks like. And then even if you're, partial to reading, I strongly encourage you to take math so that you can see what those tools are as well.
One last question. When we have assessment tools like these come along, the big concern, and I'm sure you can relate to that, is going to be construct validity and validity of the results in terms of their predictive validity, but also whether actual performance is then comparable to predicted performance. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm sure the system has some research behind it to show predictive validity and construct validity.
Yes, we actually have a lot of research, and I don't know, Carol or Nate, have you received that from Danielle, the research kind of behind the validity? And we have validity and reliability studies toward our state test too. We have a state alignment document. So there, I know in the high 0.80s. I don't know. I can certainly send you a document. Usually during our PD, we share, it's a page in our, notebook that we give teachers to show them the research on that. So I can send you that to talk about it. But I will say that's one of the strong reasons why our first PD is all about setting kids up for success on taking that first diagnostic, and then we encourage you to do it on the next diagnostic, is really to talk through that with them. We have PowerPoints to explain the diagnostic to them before they even take it. And then there's that introduction before they even start the diagnostic. We talk about motivating them and the purpose behind taking it. And we truly believe that students need to understand why we're even having them take it in the first place, so that there's more buy-in to doing it, so that we can work to make sure that the data that we get is more valid and reliable. But then I will also attach to the email, I'm going to follow up to Nate on the research that we have around the validity and reliability.
Thank you for that. I have two follow-up questions, if I may. So we are moving away from NWEA and moving in the direction of iReady. Within your package, are there conversion charts that would help teachers walk through what does a score on NWEA convert to on iReady and vice versa? If we're looking at here's what the student performed at for iReady, how does that compare to where a student would score at if they were taking NWA? Just because parents are going to come and say, well, what does NWA mean? And now what is this new test and how do the scores mash up? And of course, they're going to be posing that question from last year to this year, did my student grow, stay the same, or did they lose skills? And I'm asking this question outside of what's happening right now, of course. So that's the first thing. The second question is understanding that with interactive assessments, we need to pay attention to whether the results are measuring students' skill sets in the academic domain as opposed to results that are influenced by students' technology competency and technology mastery. So we just want to make sure that the assessment is more of an assessment of academic, not an assessment of whether they knew how to interact with the online assessment tool. So do kids have like a sandbox where they can go in and practice taking a test just to understand the features of how the system works? We're teaching how to interact with the test, not the skills that the test is assessing.
Yeah. So we go ahead, Nate.
I'm going to take part one real quick because we're doing a lot, and then I'll let you take part two. As far as data, I just received a linking study between iReady and NWA scores today that I'll be using. I'll be going in over the summer and building out comparison charts so we don't lose prior data that will show teachers exactly what the relevant NWA iReady scores and percentiles and how they align. Plus, I'll actually be doing real-time diagnostic data and sharing that with everybody in the fall with this is how this grade level was using our NWA data. This is how it correlates once they take the iReady test. So there won't be any questions about what that linking is, and we won't lose history of a student's progress in seeing where they are and where they should be, especially with what we're going through now, and expecting we're going to see much more dramatic declines than what even the projections state, because we're already starting in a district that a lot of our students are behind. So I'll be providing a lot of that I'll be building a lot of those in-district studies over the summer for us.
Okay. And one of the next concern I think I heard you say is just the technology use. And so we do have lessons built in that are lesson plans for teachers to use to teach technology first before they give the diagnostic. We do make those lessons available for the teachers. And then we don't have necessarily a sandbox, but we do give a presentation that talks them through. And then the introductory video makes them go through each of the tools that are available before they can even start the diagnostic. And then, as Nate mentioned, the online lessons are very similar, designed and set up as the assessment. So when the kids are taking the online lesson, they get a lot more practice. And so when they go to take the next diagnostic, they're even better with just the whole big picture and understanding of it, because they've been so exposed to it.
Well, sounds good. I appreciate all of the information. And for the staff, I'm sure they have questions about the mechanics of the behind the scenes. So Nate and I will work on that. I think we just will continue with practice as usual, where we would roster students based on your recommendation. We'll figure out a mechanism so that students, when they're rostered, they're identified as students with special needs, and they have a potential for certain types of accommodations and features turned on for them during the testing session. So we'll work on developing a system and a process that collects that information for you, and will communicate to you the internal process of how all of the stuff gets collected and processed.
For everybody's information, unlike with NWA where there was all this extra rostering, we've eliminated that. This is directly synced to the SIS, the MyStar system. We're working with George now to make sure that all the information gets put in correctly. Every night the system resyncs, so students will automatically be rostered into the correct classes. They will automatically be identified under demographics, including special education. The only thing I don't think will be automatic will be the actual accommodations that we turn on. But a lot of those steps we've had to take previously, we'll put all focus on making sure the MyStar is correct, and it will automatically happen in iReady. So again, another layer of work that we traditionally had to do will be lifted.
Yeah, and logging in is so much easier for students. They just go through your Clever.
Yeah.
And for teachers, they don't have to set up test sessions or anything like that. It's automatically populated on our end. We help you do that.
I appreciate hearing this information, and thank you, Nate. I think as a word of caution, our MyStar system only collects the accommodations on state assessments because those have to be reported and they're part of the extract to the state. So we can't necessarily rely on MyStar to have in it the ability to pre-build a report for accommodations on district level assessments. So MyStar has three features. There's the general census of the district and the demographic and all students, but then there is the section where teachers interact with MyStar to develop their IEPs and special education forms. And then there's the data entry piece that Kathy processes, where she's updating that digital footprint of the special education profile of each student when new IEPs are held. So the data entry that happens at that point captures the accommodations for assessment. However, it's only capturing the accommodations for state assessment, not district assessments. So that may be something that we would want to work on with technology, not necessarily technology, with pupil accounting and MyStar administrator for the district, just to make sure if that is feasible, if we can extract the data for district assessment.
Right. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. And then on the reporting end is more I was talking about. On the reporting, the district hasn't traditionally used demographic data like if a student was in special ed on the reporting end. So this will be something new that we'll be doing automatically, and ensuring that gets done. So
All right.
less,
Well,
less time digging in. So we'll definitely be working on that.
Okay. Well,
You.
I want to thank everybody, and especially Nate for organizing this behind the scenes, as well as for Jody for your time. Thank you. For the teachers and related staff, psych, speech, and social work, I do hope this was worth your while and informative. Please know that there would be follow-up meetings organized through the curriculum department when iReady is being launched, so that you would have more in-depth practical training on what is iReady, how is iReady designed, and how are the assessment items developed, and what is the intention behind the construct of the test. So I appreciate your time. I do have to sign off, so I wish everybody health and wellness and staying safe, and we'll touch base soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
And if unless everybody else has questions, if you're going to log off, if you could fill out the SurveyMonkey information that's in the chat box, would be helpful.
Thanks, Nate. The only thing I would leave you with is there's lots more to come. I think Nate was trying to give you a snapshot of iReady and just what is available, but continued PD and information I know is coming out, and so more to come, I think, is really what to leave you with, and so not to get overwhelmed at this point or stage in the game.
Right. So if there's no more questions, I think that's it. We'll have the recording if you ever want to go back and review it. I'll post it up and share it with
Yep.
everybody.
And I will also attach the document, that 15-page document that outlines the details a little more.
Right. So thank you, everyone. All right. Thank you, Jody, for running through this with us.
Absolutely.
Yes,
thank you,
so
Nate
much.
and Carol. You bet.
Yes.
Appreciate you both. Okay. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.